To meet societal challenges, we need to support new ideas and entrepreneurs in different ways. What are the challenges young entrepreneurs face when having an idea and wanting to start a business in Sweden? What can universities, private businesses, and other actors do to support young entrepreneurs and social innovation? This session is arranged by Forum for Social Innovation Sweden, a national knowledge and collaboration platform for social innovation and social entrepreneurship in Sweden, based at 5 universities from north to south. My name is Lotta Orban. I work at Forum for Social Innovation Sweden and will be your host for this session. In this panel talk, we will share how Malmö University, Forum for Social Innovation Sweden, together with Göran Bredinger, award-winning entrepreneur and CEO at Dieden Group, and IKEA Social Entrepreneurship support young entrepreneurs and startups in Sweden. First, let's meet 3 successful young entrepreneurs who have been granted the Göran Bredinger Scholarship, a scholarship founded and established by Malmö University and Forum for Social Innovation Sweden in collaboration with Göran Bredinger in 2014.
Göran Bredinger-stipendiet har delats ut av Göran Bredinger, VD för Dieden Group AB, i samarbete med Mötesplats Social Innovation vid Malmö universitet sedan 2014. I år delas det 10:e stipendiet ut till en ung samhällsentreprenör som på ett framgångsrikt sätt har utvecklat och förverkligat en innovativ lösning som direkt bidrar till att lösa en samhällsutmaning. Nu ska vi få träffa 3 stipendiater och följa med på deras företagsresa.
Hej, mitt namn är Kristoffer Persson och jag är en av 2 grundare bakom företaget Hamli.
Hej, det är jag som är Elinor.
Och det är jag som är Sofie.
Och vi är grundarna bakom Brighter.
Hej, mitt namn är Daniel Vaknina och jag tillsammans med Måns Skogman är medgrundare till Visslan.
Vi startade Hamli för att vi under vår studietid på Chalmers kände att här är ju jättemånga duktiga utbildare som skulle kunna göra skillnad ute i klassrummen i Göteborg. Men vi tyckte inte riktigt att det fanns någon digital mötesplats där skolor och förskolor kunde enkelt komma i kontakt med flexibla utbildare som kan hoppa in och jobba lite då och då. Så det är hela affärsidén bakom Hamli, att bygga en digital marknadsplats där resursen, alltså duktiga utbildare, enkelt kommer i kontakt med efterfrågan, skolor och förskolor.
Vi bygger ett digitalt skyddsnät för stöd vid våld i nära relation.
Och vi träffades i ett digitalt hackathon och vi startade faktiskt vårt bolag utan att ha träffats i verkligheten.
Visslan tillhandahåller en användarvänlig, effektiv och säker visselblåsartjänst med fokus på just visselblåsningens fördelar. I och med den nya visselblåsarlagen såg vi en funktionalitetskapplöpning inom just visselblåsarfunktioner och det gynnade varken anställda, organisationer eller samhället i stort.
Att få det här stipendiet betydde dels en vuxen bekräftelse av att det vi gör är någonting spännande och intressant och någonting vi borde satsa på. Men också en jäkla självförtroende-boost i resan.
Det här stipendiet det har hjälpt oss att validera vårt marknadserbjudande och säkerställt bra avtal.
Efter Göran Bredinger-stipendiet blev startskottet för vår tillväxt. Både tack vare exponering, självförtroende och stipendiet i sig, men även det nätverk som stipendiet förde med sig. Som ung entreprenör räcker det ofta inte med en bra idé. Man behöver någon som kan visa vägen, öppna dörrar och som tror på en. Det är inget man kan göra på egen hand som förstagångsgrundare.
Vi är sedan några år tillbaka den största aktören i Sverige inom lärarvikariemarknaden med verksamhet från Malmö i syd upp till Umeå i norr. Men vi har även tagit ett häftigt steg över till den engelska marknaden där vi nu omsätter mer än vi gör på den svenska marknaden. Så i år, 2023, är vi på väg mot en omsättning på 350 miljoner kronor.
Just nu skalar vi inom Sverige och vi håller på och kikar på Europa. Och våra främsta kunder är kommuner men även andra organisationer.
Efter Göran Bredinger-stipendiet exploderade vår tillväxt och kundbasen mer än 10-dubblades. Vi har nu skapat oss en stark position på marknaden och visat att visselblåsning inte alltid behöver vara komplicerat och fyrkantigt.
Since the establishment of the Göran Bredinger Scholarship in 2014, 9 young entrepreneurs have benefited from the scholarship and have been given the opportunity to develop their idea and business. This year, the 10th scholarship is awarded to a social entrepreneur who has successfully developed and implemented an innovative solution directly contributing to societal challenge. Now, let me introduce our first guest. Charlotte Ahlgren Moritz is chair of Forum for Social Innovation Sweden, as well as a Vice-chancellor at Malmö University. Welcome.
Thank you.
Since 2014, Forum for Social Innovation Sweden has been awarded the Göran Bredinger Scholarship 9 times, and most of the fellows have succeeded and are now viable companies. The jury discovered or pinpointed all these young successful entrepreneurs and their startups at an early stage. If we start with Hamli, Kristoffer Persson and Gustav Bildt-Toftin came up with the idea Studentvikarie and were awarded the Göran Bredinger Scholarship in 2015. As we just heard, Hamli has been extremely successful, being the largest supply agency for educators on the Swedish market, expanding in England and moving towards a revenue of 350 million crowns this year. How do you view Hamli's journey?
Well, I think I will say the same as I know that Göran Bredinger himself would say, that this is one of the absolute most successful young companies in the row of the 9 that you talked about. And so Hamli has been extremely successful, and they have in these years reached a substantial turnover, which I think is very impressive of 2 young entrepreneurs.
I have talked to Göran Bredinger, and he points out that Kristoffer and Gustav are very ambitious and goal-oriented, and they have managed to build a strong team with engaged co-workers. Do you agree, or what's so special about them? What has led to their success, would you say?
Well, I think first, I mean, their business idea is unique, or was unique at the time. So they saw a gap in the market and they took the opportunity. And I totally agree. I met them at the point where they received the award. They're very young, but very ambitious, and with a very clear goal. So I think that's one of the keys. They have been able to build a team around themselves also. That's very important, I think, for a young entrepreneurs in this case, to be able to find the right people around them to help them build.
If we move over to Brightac and Vissland, Brightac was appointed female founders of Dagens Industri in December 2022, and Vissland with a customer base that has grown tenfold since last year.
Yes.
What's special about their business and journey?
I believe that Brightac hit a very serious societal problem, societal challenge, which is domestic violence. And if you can find a way of addressing that systematically, I think everyone is very grateful for that. And when it comes to Vissland, if you talk about timing, their timing was absolutely perfect. So they had a great idea, but the timing in their case was, I think, one of the keys for their success.
Since the establishment of the scholarship in 2014, the jury has received an estimated 250 applications, from which 9 winners have been selected. All the winners have a unique business idea and personal characteristics, but all have the following in common. This is what Göran sees, at least when I talk to him. Timing, as you said about Vissland, entrepreneurial spirit, and solves a societal problem. But having said this, it's extremely tough to start a business and succeed. There are many who fail at the startup stage. The period after business concept has been tested on the market until sales can finance continued expansion is called the Valley of Death. What does it take to succeed as a young entrepreneur and early startup?
I think that one of the success factors for the Göran Bredinger Award is that, of course, you receive a sum of money. That's always useful when you start up, when you've started up your company. But I think what's even more important is what comes with that. It comes a very experienced serial entrepreneur that has built his own company, that has made a fantastic journey himself. So with Göran Bredinger Award comes also the mentorship of Göran Bredinger, his broad network where he can open doors, he can see opportunities, and I think that is as important, or I would say even more important than the money, to have that around you as a young entrepreneur, to be able to tap into to that source of experience.
And also to be able to share network and
absolutely. Also very, very important.
I know it was the former Vice-chancellor's idea, I think, first, Eva Engqvist, who came up with the idea of a scholarship, I believe.
Yes.
Why did Malmö University and Forum for Social Innovation Sweden want to establish a scholarship on social innovation for young entrepreneurs?
Forum for Social Innovation Sweden was started already in 2010, and the goal for the organization is to broaden the knowledge on what is social innovation, what are the conditions for social entrepreneurs, how do we spread the knowledge, and the force and power that social innovation has. So from that respect, I think it was very natural for the Forum and for Malmö University to, with open arms, be happy that Göran Bredinger Award is given out in a collaboration with Forum for Social Innovation Sweden, and it's also a fantastic jury that Göran has assembled.
If we move over to Malmö University a little bit, and what do entrepreneurship and social innovation and innovation mean to university and academia?
I think it's really, really important, more important today than ever. If you look at all the Swedish universities and higher education institutions, we all have an assignment from government that we should take our research and the results of our research to use in society. So that is sort of a basic task that we have. I mean, we have education part and we have the research part. That is the core of a university. But what comes out of that? The students from the education, very obvious contribution to society, but the results of research as important contribution to society. But we have also to handle the innovation process on how society can take up the innovations from universities. And I think there we can have a challenge, not least when it comes to social innovation. And we have to, I believe, reconsider the way we think about the innovation process. And social innovation is, I think, leading the way in how we have to rethink. And that is also affecting us as a university. Because I think that one of the core competencies within Forum for Social Innovation Sweden is to gather the researchers with their research results together with other sectors of society to actually discuss around challenges, and what are the potential solutions, and what can research offer as a contribution. So that also gives back to university and to our researchers new ways of thinking about how their research can be used.
What can university add or contribute to? What role can they play to promote and stimulate innovation, would you say?
Well, I think that we as higher education institutions, both in Sweden and in Europe, we play an important role in the innovation field, but I think that we can play an even stronger role if we also give credit to the researchers that do an effort to take their research to society. We have to acknowledge that effort and reward it. And I think we can be better in doing that. And I think we have to be better in doing that, because we need the innovations from universities, higher education institutions, to address the challenges that we see in society today. So we have to walk hand in hand here.
And how does academia work with supporting and stimulating entrepreneurship and an innovative climate and culture for students and researchers and employees? Because it's not all natural.
No, I think more and more. I mean, innovation is high on the agenda in the academic world. When it comes to students, we talk a lot about challenge-based learning, that our students need to be a part of society also during their studies, and be able to, together with others, address societal challenges and see how it can affect their education, and that students can be actors themselves. I think on change makers in the world. So I think that's important. And then on the research side, I think I already addressed that.
Yes.
I think that we need to support the researchers that want to make a difference in society in several different ways. And in Sweden, we have a very well-developed innovation ecosystem. Part of that is within the universities, with their innovation offices and their holding companies that can invest in the research from universities. So, and then surrounded by incubators, science parks, and different actors that support the seed of innovation to a full company.
Well, I can add this question: How do you work with capturing ideas and results that can be commercialized?
Well, at Malmö University, like many other universities in Sweden, we have innovation advisors that do an active scouting, talking to the researchers, research groups, follow the development of the research, and support with all the things that you don't get in research, which is marketing analysis. Can you patent your idea? What does the market look like? Could there be potential customers, etc., etc. So there is a lot that we can do within the innovation system, and of course the universities work in collaboration with the ecosystem surrounding academia.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. Now let's welcome our second guest and panelist. Åsa Skogström Feldt is the former CEO of the Hunger Project in New York, a global movement of individuals and organizations in 23 countries worldwide, working in partnership for the sustainable end of hunger. Since 2017, Åsa has been the managing director at IKEA Social Entrepreneurship BV, which supports social entrepreneurs worldwide to create new opportunities for vulnerable people and communities through impact investments, partnerships, and development programs. Åsa is passionate about sustainable development in all shapes and forms, both economic, environmental, and social, and has extensive experience in the private and non-profit sectors working with equality and co-creation development for sustainable societies. Welcome, Åsa.
Thank you very much.
Åsa, you are part of the Göran Bredinger scholarship jury.
Yes.
Why do you think this is important?
Well, I do believe that we need more businesses that are both planet and people positive, and that it needs to start early. So I really appreciate Göran's efforts to shine a light on not only the winner of the scholarship, but also the finalists, to create role models for other young entrepreneurs that wants to go into changing society through entrepreneurship.
And what does the jury look for when you award the scholarship? Because how many of you are you in the jury?
It has changed. I think we are now 6, maybe.
6, maybe. Yeah.
We have 8 criteria, but of course the most important ones are that you really are looking to change some societal challenge. That's number 1. And then of course it needs to be somewhat innovative and have some traction already. And of course you need to be young, but I think the societal challenge and thinking in new ways are the 2 most important ones.
And do you look for different things, do you think, with the jury, because of your background and your...
I think so, and that's the strength of having such a mixed jury, that we come with different perspectives. And I do think social entrepreneurship also needs to have those different perspectives as an entry. It's not just one evaluation criteria.
And why do you work with social entrepreneurship and social innovation at IKEA?
The world has a lot of complex challenges, and increasingly so. And of course, we all know about the climate, but equally important is the growing inequalities. And we see that one way to contribute to a more fair and equal world is to partner with social entrepreneurs and try to support them, invest in them, but also to learn from them.
What do you learn? What can we learn from?
Well, I do think the entry point, as we spoke of before, social entrepreneurs that we focus on, that try to support vulnerable groups and improving their livelihoods, their incomes, their lives, their inclusion in society, in the job sector and so forth. They have the social mission in the center, and then they build the rest around it. Of course, it still needs to be positive for the planet and have a financially viable model. But having that in the center sometimes turns things around a little bit. And I do think that all of us can learn and integrate new approaches for how to address social topics while we do the work that we normally do.
IKEA Social Entrepreneurship BV is working in the intersection between philanthropy and business development to contribute to solutions to the big challenges of our time. What challenges do you aim for?
So we focus on vulnerable groups, people who live in challenging circumstances. It can be smallholder farmers, it can be informal workers, it can be migrants, refugees, youth at risk that are in and around the IKEA ecosystem across the world. And we see that a lot of social entrepreneurs that we partner with are either in the circular economy, which is interesting in itself, or they are in the renewable or recycling, or in inclusive business and reskilling, upskilling, which we all need to contribute to when we talk about a just transition going forward. So those are the key things. But then what we do is to work either through programs, it can be accelerator programs with NGOs, where we create a cohort of 10 to 20 social entrepreneurs that we work with over 1 to 3 years. And it can be all the way to give loans and direct investments to the social entrepreneurs.
And is it, when you say the IKEA's ecosystem, is it always connected to IKEA's business or idea?
Not necessarily directly.
No.
It can be a direct supplier, but those are very few because we have such high volumes that you need to be really developed social enterprise. But we also work close to our country organizations. It might be in service delivery to our customers or even in service delivery to our operations. Or it's topics where we see that we need to contribute to transformation, like informal waste workers in India. That's a huge topic that needs to be addressed. And there we can invest in social enterprises far away from the business to start to learn what can work, how can we all contribute, and then even partner with a lot of other companies to see this big transformation.
What would you say is the benefit? How, because the benefit for the social enterprises or social entrepreneurs, and for IKEA, what are the benefits that you bring back to IKEA?
I think it's a little bit what we talked about before. We learn new approaches. We also contribute to maybe shifting certifications. For big corporates, often use certifications as a means to make sure that things follow a certain way of working. So if we can contribute to adding more social components to certifications, that's one great thing. But of course, it's also a way for our coworkers to engage as coaches, as mentors, stepping out of their everyday job for a couple of hours, being in partnership with the entrepreneurs, and getting new perspectives that they can bring back.
You also have a collaboration called Dela, or sharing in English.
Yes.
And this is with Ashoka, and you have co-created an accelerator program. And the program focuses on scaling established social enterprises that work at the system level in livelihoods, equality and inclusion, increasing their impact. Can you tell us some more about this process?
Yes, we have 5-6 accelerators running at all times, and most of them focus on more organization and business development. But we also wanted to have this global accelerator where we really focus on systems change. So we co-created this one together with Ashoka and some of their partners. And it's over 1 year, and the first half year we look into strategies and interventions and really dive into the whole systems change theory. So what type of intervention is needed to really get rid of the total problem, not to create a business, but to eradicate this challenge. And then in the second phase, we have co-created a way to define some projects that we can test and experiment, because we saw that, of course, creating a new strategy is great, but also to test and try and learn and revisit is very, very important.
And what have you, for example, if you say eradicate, what problems? Can you give an example of a country or a?
Yeah, maybe I can give there is one company called Ignitia. So they work with weather forecasting in tropical areas, because the founder, Lisa, she's actually Swedish. She noticed that there was no accurate weather forecasting in tropical areas because the weather patterns are totally different. They are very fast and intense, and she and her team managed to find a solution how to calculate that weather, and also created a distribution channel via text message. So smallholder farmers, they started in West Africa. They could get easy access to very easy to understand information about the weather. And only by doing that they could know when to sow, when to harvest, when to fertilize, when to transport their crops, and by that increase their yield, and by that increase their income, which is one of the major challenges we have.
Very interesting and good example.
Yes.
You have worked both with the non-profit organizations as well as private businesses. What would you say can the different sectors learn from each other?
I think this space in between philanthropy and business is super interesting, especially when it comes to social innovation. And I do think the corporate sector can learn something about having the social mission more at the core and how to integrate it in the business steering process as well. Because if it's not a goal, it will not happen. And on the other side, I think, of course, the entrepreneurial logic and finding financially viable models and efficiencies is something that social entrepreneurs can learn from the corporate world. So I think it's a big exchange and just about those different perspectives we talked about in the beginning.
I think there might be other companies here listening, I hope. What would you say to them? How can you convince them to start with similar programs and activities?
I think for IKEA, it's about living our values. And it's also about meaning for our coworkers. Those are two very important extra benefits of partnering with social enterprises. So if you want to contribute to social innovation, society that works for everybody, and also have a great environment for your coworkers to get leadership development, I think this is a great way to do it.
Thank you very much, Åsa.
Thank you.
Now let's bring Charlotte back for a panel talk. So now you listen to each other and we saw the video. And so how does Sweden stand in competition internationally when it comes to social entrepreneurship and support for young social innovators, would you say?
I would say generally Sweden and the Nordic countries score very high on the European Innovation Scoreboard. Then you can ask yourself whether that helps a social entrepreneur or not. I think that one thing that is good is that we do have an ecosystem. We do have the inclination to support innovation. It's very important. We have, again, Agenda 2030 very high on our, both in private business and in public and civil sector society. And from, of course, the government level. So I think that we want to understand how we better can address the 17 goals that we have to reach. So we have a good foundation, but I think that we need to reinvent the innovation process, and we have to think a bit differently about the innovation process. Because we have had a way of thinking tech transfer, technology transfer. We worked with that for years and years, but now it's more the social part of the Agenda 2030 that we want to address with social innovation. And I think that then we have to involve people in cities or in rural areas. We have to involve the people that are in the social challenge, in the societal challenge, that feel it and live it every day. They have to be involved in our processes. We have to use, of course I have to say this, but I strongly believe it, research-based knowledge. And I don't think that we use it enough in innovation processes and in decision making. So we have to find those meeting places where we can discuss over borders, mental borders, geographical borders, sector borders, to find the solutions that we need to find. And we need to work with this, and you addressed that also. We need to work on a grassroots level. We also need to work on a system level to change the way we do things. Because we have a way of thinking about an economy and so on, and it's very difficult to break, and it's very difficult to work between silos still.
Well, so what would you say, you because you work worldwide, what is your view on, what have you seen?
In Sweden?
Yeah.
I think it's very developed, as you said, entrepreneurship in general, I would say. I think I read a study from the EU that there are probably a less ratio of entrepreneurs in Sweden than in many other countries. But on the other hand, we seem to be more innovative. So there is also the part of unleashing more entrepreneurs. And that pathway forward, that it can be really exciting and worthwhile career move also. So I think there is always more to do to unleash that spirit.
The climate in Sweden for young entrepreneurs, do we have, apart from the ecosystem and the actors, the climate, and like you were saying, the unleashing, what do we need to do then to unleash? What's our culture, the Swedish jante, or how can we work against that?
Yeah, good question. Well,
maybe you don't have the solution here.
No, well, I do think I have seen a big change the last maybe 5 to 10 years, that it starts to be really cool to be an impact investor. That's a good start because they need social enterprises to invest in. And that whole space, making it not only being something for civil society or for the cooperative movement, but it's also really a cool way forward. I think that has changed a lot the last years. That's what I can see.
And I fully agree. And we can see that in certain areas, really startup areas of Sweden, in Sweden. And to be an entrepreneur is something good, something creative, something interesting, that where you could shape your life. So I think, and I also think that there is a very strong drive in young people today. We see it in our students, that they really want to make a change in society. So to have your idea and to start your own company, that's one way of making a change.
What are the main challenges then when starting a business in Sweden?
Understanding your customer.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
The classic answer. Yeah, please, Lotta.
Yeah, I think there are some, both being a social entrepreneur and a regular entrepreneur, if there's one. But I think it's always fine. What's the value I'm adding here? Or what's the problem I'm solving? That's always, I guess, the entry point. But I read another study from the OECD that was really interesting, and it seems like more people than average in Sweden don't believe they have the skills. So it's also a little bit, I don't know if that's a fact or if that's something about your self-confidence or self-esteem or how we are brought up. I don't know, but I found that really interesting, and that's also, of course, for the educational system, something to take into account.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think one challenge that a social entrepreneur in Sweden can have is that we have a very strong welfare system in Sweden. It's run to a large extent by by the public sector. And a lot of the challenges that you see in society and that a social entrepreneur is addressing is handled, so to say, by the welfare system. So for a smaller, starting up social entrepreneur to get into that system and to find your customer in that system, I think that is a big challenge that we have to think about how we work with that in Sweden, not to lose good ideas.
Yeah, and to build on that, also I've seen a couple of examples where the benefit of the social entrepreneurial solution is on a higher level than things get measured.
Yeah.
Because if you work, for instance, with preventive measures, then you save a lot of money in another budget, but you don't see that until you go to the next level, and that's very difficult.
Yeah. So new financial models is
That's also
something
needed.
that we definitely need.
Well, you talked about the skills. I'm just curious what certain skills you need to have. Can you talk about like more apart from the ambition and the...
Yeah, I think, I mean, the Sustainable Development Goals requires us to interact and be in other ways than we were before. It also will require new types of leadership. And I do think the movement that is called the Inner Development Goals are really onto something where we need to work more on ourselves, to understand ourselves, but then also to see how we need to interact to create this inclusiveness that we are all talking about, the empathetic leadership. That is really a core competence for the future. True. And when we evaluate our accelerator programs and how the participants have perceived it, actually it's very interesting. It's very similar to what the young entrepreneurs said here in the film, that of course funds are always important, and of course high risk funding and maybe blended funding, a mix of grants and loans and equity is something that's really needed at a bigger scale. But what they appreciate the most is the support for them as leaders and for how to lead their teams, how to acknowledge their own needs and also well-being. Because it's so easy to just run, and especially if you're young and super passionate and you want to work 24/7, but it's not possible in the long run. So to have that type of support, and also how to create the best possible working environment in your leadership team or in your whole team, that's what is mostly appreciated in our accelerators.
Interesting. There are much more we could talk about, but I think we should close off, and I thank you very much. I don't know if you want to say something else, if you want to add something that we haven't touched upon.
Maybe to go back to your question to me before about why work with partnering with social enterprises and why work with the social and environmental questions going forward. I think there is also the regulations coming up, the legislation that is already here. We all need to step up, both when it comes to the environment and to the social topics. I think we have understood the environmental part, maybe not cracked the nut yet, but we are trying. But I do think we have a long way to go in the social part, so it's time to step up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
To meet complex and societal challenges, organizations as well as private businesses need to collaborate and support social entrepreneurs, social startups, and social enterprises. Different sectors and actors need to exchange knowledge, collaborate, and co-create solutions. There is a need for new ideas, but we also need to make use of the creative solutions that we already know or have at hand, scaling and translating those to other industries, regions, and countries. Thank you all for listening and watching us here at Sweden Innovation Days.